Bayer, and it's my pleasure to share with you some tips and some information about the I Am Impressive takeaway lesson, which is available in the World Citizen online course. This is lesson 2 of 5 that are provided with the World Citizen Certificate in Civility for Youth and Children. And I encourage you to download the lesson from the online course, have it printed and in front of you as we walk through some of these tips and so forth. If you have occasion, I would also suggest that you review it, read it first before you continue on with this video. And make sure that you go back and listen to part 1 and 2 about Golden Rule Civility, which is lesson 1, what I would call the most important or foundational lesson when you're teaching world citizenship and civility for children age 3 to 8, which is what these lessons were written for. I am going to close the camera and post up for you the lesson so that you can have a look here. And let me get myself out of the screen here, and here we are, and we're talking about the I Am Impressive lesson. So as you might guess from looking at the lesson plan, this is about first impressions. And so the goal of this lesson is to discuss the concept of first impressions. And first impressions are really important. We know from research that other parents, children, teachers even respond in different ways and treat children differently as adults do to adults as well, depending on their first impression. And as we get older, sometimes there's bias, conscious or unconscious. There's other components of judgment and assessment, and hopefully we can learn not to be judgmental, but at the beginning we also want children to understand that they have the power to influence how they are perceived by how they present themselves. And so this is really important, and this lesson is for ages 3 to 8. So especially as children get a little bit older, 6, 7, 8, and they're doing more social and public things, this will be more and more important. So each lesson is written in the same way. The lesson plans are devised the same way. There is a script, there's some learning objectives, a minute-by-minute outline, worksheets, handouts, supplies list, recommended reading, and so on. As was discussed, I hope you will go back and make sure that you review part 1 and 2 of Golden Rule, which is lesson 1 in these 1 of 5 in these lessons that we provide as takeaway for the World Citizen Certificate for Children and Youth, Certificate in Civility for Children and Youth. So, this lesson, the 3 learning objectives are to understand what learning impressions are, and some of the social competencies that are covered off there are defining first impressions, understanding why impressions are important, how are we going to send a first impression, and we're going to describe elements of those first impressions. You know, how do you actually do what we want you to do? So this is about building trust. It's one of the takeaways. It's about personal power. It's about confidence. Aspects of self-esteem, aspects of social intelligence, even pieces of emotional intelligence, meaning a child's ability to monitor and restrain their facial expressions, those kind of things. So we want children to be able to send a positive first impression. The way this lesson is outlined is that there are some activities, we have books. As always, we would suggest that you have a sense of what you're going to give children to do, play on a break, whether it's games or puzzles or books to read, puppet show, all kinds of things that you might encourage them to do when you give them a little break. Typically, we would want to teach in 20-minute segments, and if children are really young, age 3, even maybe a 5 or 7 minute segment. So don't be too concerned about racing through the lesson. If you get one key point delivered it in a way that you feel the children soaked it up and learned it, that's more important than cramming everything in for the sake of fitting it in to a 1-hour lesson. So the way we're going to start this lesson is we're going to talk about what a first impression is. And so there's some terms to know there. This is the draft part. You should all have a clean copy PDF that you downloaded from the online course. In any case, what we want to do is give children name cards at first. And I think you can talk about the ability to say our name with confidence and pride is one of the first things that we can do to monitor and control how people perceive us. If we can at least stand up straight and say our name, that's a really important way of showing people that, we feel good about who we are, that we're proud of our name, and so on. And one thing you could do is ask children to each, first, to no one in particular, everybody doing it at the same time, stand up and say their name. Put on their most confident posture, stance, like a Superman stance. Say, act like you're a superhero. My name is Lou and I am a superhero. Give them some small way to learn to stand with posture and pride and to state their name loudly and clearly and in a prideful way. Then you can ask them, after they've practiced that a little bit, to take a turn and say their name for the other people in the room, so that they can have a sense of what it's like when people are looking at them and listening to them. All they have to do is say their name. And you can tell them that if they're shy about that, they could wear their Superman mask. Sometimes I can get from the dollar store or from Halloween those little eye masks, and you can let them wear an eye mask initially. So then they'll still stand up straight, they project their voice, but they feel like if their eyes are covered like this, even if they can see, it helps them feel less afraid. It's a confidence thing. Or you can tell them if they feel nervous, they don't have to look at people. They could stand up and they say their name loudly and proudly with their back to people. That's a good way to start things too. So, we're going to talk about what a first impression is. And we want children to know that this is what people think about you when they first meet you or see you. And sometimes you don't say anything and people make a first impression. So how you look is important, as well as what you say and how you sound. So, I like to start with a stopwatch. This is an activity that's included in this lesson. 30 seconds can seem like a long time. So what I'll do is ask children to sit quietly, let the stopwatch go for 30 seconds. I'll ask them just to sit there and listen. And then I'll tell them that this is how much time we have in the beginning to make a first impression. So while it might go quite quickly, for other children there might be an understanding that that's actually a lot of time. So they could correct a behavior, or if they weren't standing up straight and then they realized they still have time, they could stand up straight, that we have some time. So I think it's fun to illustrate the point by make a few different faces in 30 seconds. Walk funny, change your posture, ask children what they think. So say to them, in the next 30 seconds, I am going to show you some expressions and some postures and move in different ways. And you tell me what you think. Like, do you have time to make a judgment about me in 30 seconds? And so make a sad face or an angry face, walk around, stomp around, all these things. Show the children how a facial expression, the way we use space, where our arms are, what we're wearing, how we smell, all of those things impact a first impression. And then we're going to ask the children, we're going to brainstorm. Maybe you write on a flip chart, or if it's older children, you let them go in small groups and write on a flip chart. What are all the ways we can make a good first impression? And let them do it. So they're going to say things like smile, shake hands, give you something, say hello. They're going to give you all kinds of answers. So you want to acknowledge those and express that, yes, they are effective, or no, they're not. So then we're going to do some role playing. We're going to let the children practice making first impressions. With the little kids, we don't have to use all of this language. What we're going to say to them is, what do you do when you meet someone new? And maybe you just start with eye contact, if that's appropriate for your culture. Remember that all of this core curriculum is grounded in North American culture and devised initially by civility experts. who are considered the global experts, but our background is North American, Canada specifically. So you're going to start with something like stand up if people are standing, sit down if people are sitting, look at people. Look at them, look them in the eye. Maybe just saying hello. Just start with one simple, easy thing. Again, you should know who's in the room with you, know what levels they're at, and adjust the lesson accordingly. Then we're going to talk about all different ways to make good first impressions, handshakes, for example, and posture. We can spend a little bit of time on posture, do different kinds of walks. What does this funny walk say? What if we take long walks, or walk really slow, or walk super fast? What if we wave our arms when we walk? There's all kinds of ways, again, to get the children excited and interested. Then we can do picture work, where we can show short videos or pictures, magazines, and so on. And we can ask people, especially this works well with older children. Young children might see the face and they'll say emotions, which is okay because that's building on lesson 1, which we talked about feelings. The older children instead might say, she looks tired, or he looks clean, or she looks interesting. Their vocabulary changes and their experience changes. So we want to tell children know that sometimes people look a certain way and they make a bad impression. So because they look dirty, we might think that they look sad or poor or hungry. But we have to remember we can't always know, or we can't always guess. Sometimes we have to suspend our judgment and ask people how they feel. So again, depending on the age, we're teaching non-judgment, we're teaching social radar, we're teaching self-assessment, we're teaching oral communication, we're teaching meeting and greeting etiquette. There's a whole lot incorporated into this lesson, and so you will have to pick and choose based on the age of the children what's appropriate. All right, moving along here, there's a little bit of review, and what we can do is sometimes we can ask our children to observe. So if we have the ability to be at a playground, we can ask children, look at the boy in the yellow sweater on the slide. What's your impression of him? Or what's your impression of the man crossing the street that we can see out the window here? You want to show them that impressions and behaviors change depending on where we are and who we're with. This is also a really good time to introduce the idea of culture, that in certain cultures, different postures, different ways of dressing, different expressions mean different things. And so we have to be careful not to think that everybody is the same as us, and to be brave and ask questions, get to know people, and make sure that we're comfortable explaining ourselves to people too. If they say, I noticed you're standing a certain way, does that mean you're angry? And we should be able to express to them what our feeling or emotion is too. There's a take-home worksheet on positive introductions. It's included there for you and the link. And then we have no homework for the youngest, the age kind of 3 to 4. But you might have to help the children one by one, or get an older child to help them if, for example, they're not reading and writing yet. And you can use this activity verbally too. You don't always have to use the print version. So what we're trying to do here with the youngest children is to help them understand that they can introduce themselves and that other people can introduce themselves. That introductions are one way to invite an impression. And so my name is X. I am however years old. I have brothers, I have sisters, pets, my favorite food, my favorite color, my favorite book. When I grow up, I want to what? We're trying to start them having a conversation. We're trying to build conversation. We're trying to teach them self-awareness. And we're trying to build their confidence such that they would feel that they present a positive impression. And we've also given them a few questions they could ask someone when they meet someone new. So once again, Although the lesson seems really simple on the surface, there's actually quite a bit worked in there. I like to line the children up in a row and let them shake hands with each other, and then we'll say switch and let them shake hands with somebody else. I like to give them dress-up clothes, hats, all different hats and scarves and gloves and old handbags, glasses, and stick-on mustaches, wigs, all kinds of clothes, and I let them dress up as a character and then go introduce yourself as that character and let the other person see, what did your face say? How did you use your body? If you dressed up like an old woman, how did the other person know you're an old woman? Was it because you were hunched over? Was it because you walked and talked slowly? It's teaching them how to observe, how to ask questions, how to note the impression that they make about others and to make a good impression.